Today, we're ranking the worst games in Mortal Kombat history. This includes the main series fighting games and also spin-off titles like Special Forces. I'm gonna rank them all to find the worst of the worst. But first, my last video reached 3,000 likes, which means I've gotta do a handstand.
I'm tucking my shirt in so I don't flash anybody. That's gonna fall off, so let's just chuck that. That was pretty looking at least, but I didn't walk. Oh.
I always keep my promises, and if today's video gets 2,000 likes, I'm actually not sure. Maybe the comments can decide. Type down below what my 2,000 likes reward should be this time. I've done front flips, handstands, nunchuck stuff. I'm running out of ideas here. Maybe I can destroy one of the giant statues behind me with a baseball bat or something. Give me ideas in the comments. Everyone watching, go ahead and do both, alright? Leave a like and also comment what the reward should be. Alright, onto the video. Ranking the worst Mortal Kombat games. We gotta start off with Mortal Kombat 3, because this game was despised on release. And I'm not kidding everyone, people actually avoided this game at the arcades and just played Mortal Kombat 2 instead, because typically both arcade cabinets were still there and MK2 was just superior. Almost everybody agreed that Mortal Kombat 3 was worse, but not because of the gameplay. In fact, Mortal Kombat 3 had great gameplay. It added the run button, which most players agree is awesome. Honestly, I wish Mortal Kombat 1 had a run button, because I'm so tired of seeing this happen, especially at tournaments. Like seriously, why is backdashing so good? NetherRealm, stop making runaway so good. I'm so tired of watching the enemy backdash over and over again. The next Mortal Kombat game needs a run button, alright? Which once again, Mortal Kombat 3 pioneered, so the gameplay was good. The issue was the roster. That's right, Mortal Kombat 3 has the worst roster in Mortal Kombat history, and basically nobody would argue that. I'm not joking. You won't find a die-hard Mortal Kombat 3 defender. They don't exist, and that's because this game doesn't have the ninja characters. Yeah, look at the screen, none of them are here. Fan favorites like Scorpion and Reptile are completely missing. Along with other fan favorites like Johnny Cage, Kitana, Melina, none of them are here. And there's two really big reasons why this happened. Number one, Mortal Kombat was getting sued. Alright, they were busy with lawsuits. And I don't want to go into too many details, let's keep it simple. One of the big actors from the previous game, possibly more than one, was arguing they didn't get paid enough since Mortal Kombat became this global success, right? Everybody was playing it made tons of money, and as a result the actor, possibly actors, believed they deserve more compensation because the game did so well, give them a piece of that action. And I think the game developers ended up settling, right? Which means both parties agreed on something outside of court, but I'm not a lawyer and I don't feel like digging too deep into all the details. Essentially, that's what I believe happened. The main reason Mortal Kombat 3 did not have the ninja characters was for legal reasons. However, that's not the only reason. Also, the Mortal Kombat series was trying to move away from the palette swaps, right? Because already the games were getting mocked for every character being the same person but a different color, right? Here's Sub-Zero, here's Green Sub-Zero, here's Red Scorpion, right? Also, Kitana, Jade, and Melina were all the same person just with different colors. It was kinda lazy and the game was getting mocked for this reason. And as a result, Mortal Kombat 3 ditched the palette swaps, aside from Sector and Cyrax, who are literally that, which is very ironic, but for the most part, the palette swaps are gone in Mortal Kombat 3 because the series was trying to move away from that. However, the entire situation backfired, and Mortal Kombat 3 is the least popular game in the entire series. Nobody wanted to play it because the fan favorites were missing. But then on top of that, here's an even crazier fact. The next game, Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, was released only a few months later, almost right away. That's right, Mortal Kombat 3 was alive for less than half a year. How crazy is that? As a result, Mortal Kombat 3 is the least explored game in the entire series, as in the tournament players and pro players haven't experimented very much with this game, so there's tons of stuff that never got discovered or explored because the game was alive for such a short period of time. So now it's time to rank Mortal Kombat 3. Overall, I would say the gameplay is decent. The main issue was the roster. So yes, the game is bad, but not terrible. To give an example of a truly bad game, let's talk about Mythology's Sub-Zero, because this game is so painfully unfun to play that nobody enjoys it for the fun of it. That's right, the only reason anybody plays this game is for the struggle, right? For the difficulty. They want to say, I beat this game game despite how terrible it is to play. When I say this game is difficult, I'm not talking Dark Souls difficult, where you memorize patterns and stuff and can eventually beat the game. No, this game is much worse because at least Dark Souls has good gameplay. It feels fluid, the mechanics make sense, and that's not the case for Mythology Sub-Zero. The gameplay itself is difficult, and as a result, it's not very fun to play because the core mechanics are just unintuitive. But then on top of that, it's really easy to die, the AI is extremely cheap and hits you from off screen, there's environment hazards that hit you off screen too and can one-shot you. It is so easy for Sub-Zero to die in this game. So when you combine all these factors, the only way to beat this game was to cheese it, right? Play really cheap. I'm talking tons of jump kicks, refreezing enemies over and over again, that kind of stuff. As a regular player, if you want to beat Mythology Sub-Zero, you gotta play really cheesy and basically cheat the system. However, with all that being said, watching this game speedrun is very interesting because players have found interesting loopholes and tricks. For example, you can freeze one enemy and then move him all the way to a different area as a way to cheat the game and beat the level faster, which I find super interesting. Little stuff like that is cool, and don't get me wrong, overall Mythology Sub-Zero does have some novelty, because there's no other game like it in the Mortal Kombat series. Even so though, I've got to put this game in the top tier terrible, because for nearly anyone on Earth, the average player, this game is not fun. It actively makes you suffer. So next up, let's talk about Mortal Kombat 4, because that's another game that people are constantly hating on online. If you go on Reddit or other social media forums, tons of people are roasting Mortal Kombat 4 because the gameplay was really unbalanced. For an easy example, just look at my Melina gameplay on screen. I can do a full combo with ball roll, and it does so much damage the game forces me off the opponent. But even so, I'm still getting like 45% damage for a single move that goes under projectiles and other attacks, so yeah, it's really broken. And that was Mortal Kombat 4 in a nutshell. To win at this game, you had to be adrenaline focused and just abuse the crap out of your character's moves. That's how you won. Mortal Kombat 4 was high octane nonsense, which in a way gives it a unique charm because I don't think any other game was this fast. Mortal Kombat 4 was definitely the quickest game, but overall the gameplay was very unbalanced and there was also tons of bugs too. Attacks did not work correctly. For example, Noob Saibot's Ghost Ball did not work if you were player 2. That's right, and he's not the exception. Tons of characters had bugs and glitches like this. You could also use the weapons to exploit the game's combo break system. So yeah, overall this game was just really buggy, which does give it its own charm in a way, but to the average player, Mortal Kombat 4 is considered one of the worst games in the series. Oh, and also I've got to mention the roster, because Mortal Kombat Gold has a lot more fan favorite characters in it, very similar to Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. But the debut roster in Mortal Kombat 4 was seriously lacking. Let me go ahead and pull it up real quick. As you can see, there's no Katana, no Melina, no Cyborgs, Kung Lao was missing, even Baraka was absent from the initial roster. Yeah, Mortal Kombat 4 was very lacking, similar to Mortal Kombat 3. And when you combine that factor with the gameplay being so unbalanced too, I would argue that MK4 is actually worse than Mortal Kombat 3. But let me know in the comments section if you disagree. I think when you combine the gameplay being so unbalanced with the lackluster roster, Mortal Kombat 4 is just a bit worse than Mortal Kombat 3. However, with that said, I like Mortal Kombat 4, don't get it twisted. I actually enjoy this game, but I'm a weirdo in that regard. Real quick, for an honorable mention, let's talk about Mortal Kombat X, because this game is also roasted all the time for its debut roster, which is why it's only an honorable mention. After adding all the DLC characters, the roster in Mortal Kombat X was good, but that was not the case when it first launched, and years later people were still roasting how bad the launch roster was for Mortal Kombat X. Tons of fan favorite characters were missing, and instead a good chunk of the roster was brand new characters or knockoff characters. And as a result, many players were not happy with this roster. In a way, Mortal Kombat X kind of feels like Third Strike, because both games were disliked on release, but years later people look back on it fondly and say Mortal Kombat X was doing something right. In other words, it still has that niche audience of people who say, yeah, a lot of the characters were new and different, but I actually like that. Which is why Mortal Kombat X is like Third Strike in my honest opinion. However, real quick to add my own personal take on this whole situation, I do think MKX took things too far. I do think it had too many new characters and not enough returning fan favorite characters, but maybe that's just me. So now finally, to end this video, let's talk about the worst game in Mortal Kombat history according to most people online and also people who've played the game personally. That game's name is Special Forces. You play as Jax and nobody else, which was not the intention. John Tobias wanted Sonya and possibly other characters to be playable as well. However, this game went through developer hell, and the end product shows that. You can only play as Jax, the gameplay is kind of jank and weird, also very glitchy, and very similar to Mythology's Sub-Zero, enemies attack you from off-screen, and the game can feel very cheap and just hard to play. However, with all that said, I think this game is charming in its own way because you roam around, collect stuff, unlock doors with keys, and also there's boss characters who later on would be added to future games, so that's neat too. However, even so, Special Forces is very difficult to play, and certain levels in particular are infamous, like the rocket launcher cliffs. Look at this gameplay on screen and how cheap it is. The enemies shoot rockets at you from the cliffside, and you've got to shoot them before they hit you, which is nearly impossible until you memorize where they are in advance. And even then, it gets tricky, right? This game is difficult, and not in a fun way. It's cheap, just like Mortal Kombat Mythologies. So as a result, many people consider it the worst Mortal Kombat game, because not only is the gameplay super unfun, but you're also stuck playing Jax. And I like Jax, but realistically, he's not a very popular character in the series. He's not top 10, in other words. I personally think he should be, but let's be real, if we had a poll of all the Mortal Kombat characters, Jax would barely crack the top 20. And in Special Forces, you're stuck playing as this guy, so it's kinda rough. As mentioned earlier, Special Forces is considered the worst Mortal Kombat game, and I've gotta agree. But with that said, I kinda wish that NetherRealm would try this again, make another game similar to Special Forces, but just better, like Shaolin Monks 2.0. Alright everyone, there you have it, the worst games in Mortal Kombat history. Some fighting games and also some spin-off games with an honorable mention thrown in there too. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. If so, please leave a like down below. Every like helps out the algorithm, makes the video do better. But also, if we get 2,000 likes, I'll do something crazy. I always do. So for anyone watching who's new to this channel, finish that combo by subscribing and ringing that bell so you never miss any future videos. Make sure to come back next time, and as always, stay underdogs.